You know those moments when you're just stuck between a rock and a hard place? There's no easy answer, no clear right or wrong. Do you help out a friend, or do you do what you think is fair? Well, today on The Explainer, we are breaking down a really powerful framework that's designed for exactly those moments, those tough, gray areas.
All right, let's just dive right in with a classic dilemma. Picture this. You're in the middle of a big exam and you see your friend cheating. What do you do? I mean, it's not a simple yes or no, is it? It's one of those moments that really pits two important values against each other: your loyalty to a friend versus your sense of honesty. And that's exactly why these situations are so tough, right? There's no clean, simple answer. They create this internal conflict because some of our most deeply held values are suddenly at odds with each other. So, if we really look at this cheating problem, you can see it's this massive clash of values. On one side, you've got honesty and fairness to everybody else in the room who's studied hard. But on the other, you've got loyalty to your friend. And kind of bubbling under all of that is your own feeling of personal responsibility. So, which one wins? How do you even begin to choose? So, is there a better way to handle these kinds of choices than just, I don't know, going with your gut or flipping a coin? Well, turns out there is. There's a structured way to actually think through the problem. And this is where a really powerful tool comes into play. It's called the values analysis approach. At its heart, it's just a way of applying logic and critical thinking to these messy moral problems, helping guide you to a decision that you can actually stand behind, one that you can explain and feel good about. Now, this whole approach really rests on a few key ideas you can see right here. Basically, it forces you to just slow down. Instead of that knee-jerk reaction, it asks you to be more like a detective. Look at the evidence, consider all the different paths you could take, and get super clear on which values are really driving your decision. The whole point is to make a choice you can defend with some solid reasoning. All right, so that's the big idea. But how does it actually work in practice? Well, this framework has a 7-step process that really acts like a roadmap, taking you from that feeling of confusion all the way to clarity. And here it is, the whole 7-step roadmap. As you can see, it follows a really logical path. You start by just defining the problem, then you explore your options and what might happen, and it doesn't just end with making a choice. That last step, apply and reflect, is absolutely crucial. That's how you get better at this for the next time. So the first couple of steps are all about laying the groundwork. First, you have to be really clear about the problem. What's the actual issue here? And then, just like we did with the cheating scenario, you have to identify those core values that are clashing with each other. Okay, now this is where we really start to dig in. For steps 3 and 4, you actually map out your different options and think about the consequences. And it's so important to think about the short term and the long term. Like reporting your friend, that creates immediate drama for sure, but in the long run, it upholds fairness for everyone. Staying quiet avoids that awkwardness now, but it might eat away at the trust in the whole system later. When you see it all laid out like this, the trade-offs become so much clearer, right? For step 5, you kind of have to zoom out a bit. You take your best options and you run them through a higher level filter. You ask these bigger questions. Which choice really respects everyone involved? Which one is the most fair? And which one lines up best with the values of our community, whether that's a classroom or a workplace? And then, after all that work, you get to steps 6 and 7. You make a rational decision based on your analysis. But it doesn't stop there. Step 7 is the real game changer. You act on your decision, and then you take a minute to reflect on it. What did you learn from this whole process? That reflection is what really sharpens your skills for the next tough choice that comes along. Okay, so that's the theory. It makes sense for the cheating example, but what about something else? Let's see how this whole method holds up when we move from theory to practice in another classic tough spot. Man, we've all been there, right? The dreaded group project where a couple of people do all the work, but everyone gets the same grade. This is another perfect example of a values conflict. It's that classic tug of war between fairness and accountability on one side and, cooperation and teamwork on the other. And a really important thing to remember is that this framework isn't just something you do in your own head. It's incredibly powerful when you use it with other people. You can use strategies like debates, which are awesome because they force you to argue a position you might not even agree with, and that shows you its strengths and weaknesses. Or methods like fishbowl discussions, where a small group can hash out an issue while everyone else listens, giving the whole room a deeper perspective.
Now, if you're ever the one leading one of these discussions, your role is absolutely key. You're not there to be the judge and jury and give everyone the right answer. Your job is to be a guide. You're there to ask those probing questions, to make sure every voice gets heard, and to keep things respectful, even when people really, really disagree.
So we've gone through all these steps, all these frameworks. What's the big takeaway here? What's the real point of learning this structured way to make decisions? And that brings us to what is, honestly, the most important point of this entire explainer. This whole process is not about finding the one single correct answer that works for everybody in every situation.
Now, the real goal here is to build a skill. Think of it like a muscle, the muscle of moral reasoning. It's about training yourself to look at these complicated, messy, value-filled situations and make choices that you can justify with confidence and clarity. At the end of the day, this whole approach isn't about being told what's right. It's about learning how to think for yourself. And that's a skill that goes way beyond any single dilemma. It's a tool you can use for your entire life. So, I guess the real question is, what's the next tough choice you'll use it on?